There's a profession that most families have never heard of, and yet it might be the single most useful resource that you can hire when caring for an aging parent. So these resources, they coordinate doctors and specialists, they advocate at hospitals, they evaluate care communities, they navigate Medicaid applications. Like essentially they handle things that you don't have the time to handle or that you honestly don't even know how to handle, right? These resources are called aging life care managers. You might still hear them being referred to by their older name as geriatric care managers. I want you to think of them as the senior care equivalent of a wedding planner. Okay. You can plan a wedding yourself. Most people don't, though, because there's too much coordination, right? There's too many vendors, there's too many decisions. And most of the time, there's too much at stake if you do it badly. I think the same logic applies here to senior care. So today, I want to walk you through exactly what these professionals do, what they cost, when they're absolutely worth it, when you probably don't need one, and then how to find a good one. Okay. Welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Winston One. I'm currently studying for my certified and long-term care designation, my Georgia life insurance license, and I'm in the process of acquiring an assisted living community right now. So trust me, I am deep in this world every single day, right? The operational side, the financial side, and then most importantly, the human side as well. And if you're caring for your aging parents or you're planning ahead for your own care, I want you to hit that subscribe button. I believe we're building something pretty special over here. We're trying to cultivate a community of people who refuse to be blindsided by the care system. All right. Now, quick thing before we jump into this. Once again, I'm not your financial advisor. I'm not your insurance agent, your attorney, your doctor, right? This is education on a category of senior care professional. Now, for your specific family situation, I want you to talk to a licensed professional in your state. Okay, cool. Let's get into it. So what does a geriatric care manager or an aging life care manager actually do? Okay. Now, these are professionals who specialize in coordinating care for older adults. So most of them have backgrounds in nursing or social work or gerontology, essentially a mix of all of those. And they essentially become your family's quarterback for these senior care decisions. Now, here's what this looks like in practice. Okay. 5 things that they will typically handle that most families struggle with. The first thing that they do is usually a comprehensive assessment. So they'll come into your home or your parents' home, and they'll do a full evaluation of the physical, cognitive, emotional, social, and overall environmental situation. Now, this isn't the rinky-dinky 20-minute Medicare wellness visit or like a telehealth NP visit, right? This is hours of evaluation. They're looking for safety in the home, right? They're talking to the parent about the daily life. They're reviewing the medications. They're talking to family members. They're looking at financial documents. It could be invasive for some people, but essentially the end product is a written care plan that prioritizes what needs that the parent might need and in what order these needs need to be fulfilled in. Okay. The second thing that they'll do is care coordination, because once that plan is in place, you're going to need somebody to actually run the plan, right? And this is what they do. They run the play. So they'll coordinate, appointments with PCPs, right? Primary care doctors, specialists, dentists, podiatrists, all the stuff that an aging parent might actually need. They'll make sure everyone is on the same page about medications, about treatments, about care goals, et cetera, et cetera. They will manage communication between providers as well, which, if anyone who's ever tried to get 2 doctors to talk to one another, that's a job in and of itself. But they will do that, right? They will take that on their load. The third thing that they'll do is medical advocacy. Now, this one I believe is truly underrated because when your parent goes into the hospital, they advocate for you. So like, for example, my wife, we have 2 kids, right? And I remember on her second time delivering, we went in with an idea that we weren't going to use an epidural. And she was like, hold me to that. Can I tell you that the first time I heard her scream, like in the hospital with that contraction, I'm like, hey, you know what I'm saying? And she was like, get me an epidural. I'm like, get her an epidural right now. But thank goodness that we had a doula there, right? The doula was educated. The doula was advocating. The doula, knew what to say and how to say it, calm her down, make sure that she was good, applied the counter pressure, did all that stuff, right? And then the doula was like calming me down as well, right? That's essentially what these guys offer, but for the senior living and senior care process. Okay, like they're at the discharge planning meetings. They ask the right questions, right, and they push back on the premature discharges. Now, for anybody that's ever had a doula, anybody that's ever had a wedding planner, you know the value that this overlay service can add to the experience. So please don't overlook it. Okay. Now, also for long distance family members, I think this alone will justify their cost because you can't be there. You can't miss work to go and do this stuff, right? You need somebody there. And ideally, you need somebody trusted there as well. Now, the fourth thing that they do, and I believe this one is also very, very underrated, is that they do family communication really, really well. Because I think what happens is that when there are siblings, and of course, there's always usually siblings, these geriatric care managers, they become the neutral party. So they get to communicate the updates to everyone. They get to document the decisions. And this reduces the conflict that comes from one sibling making unilateral decisions while the other ones just form opinions from afar. Okay. I truly believe this is one of the most underrated benefits because I think it tends to keep families closer together, right? Gives them a rallying point rather than a reason for conflict to brew. And then five is crisis response. So think about like when a fall happens, or a hospitalization happens, or if a sudden decision needs to be made, they respond and they respond quickly. Often, if you find a good one, often within a couple hours, right? This could be, while you're still trying to find a flight or take a day off of work, they're already at the hospital. And this can be incredibly valuable because once again, the thing that most people don't have in a lot of these situations and a lot of these crisis situations is time. And if it takes you too long to respond to one of these situations, you run the risk of putting yourself and your parent in significant harm. Okay. Now let's talk about what they actually cost, because I think this is where families get sticker shock a lot of the time. Typically, they'll charge by the hour. So in 2026, hourly rates are going to run between $100 and $250. And that depends on your market, of course, and then also the manager's credentials. Some of them will charge a flat fee for the initial assessment. That's usually between $500 and $1,500, depending on where you go. And then ongoing services, those are going to be billed hourly. Okay. So let me give you a realistic example. So once again, I'm based in Atlanta. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia. So if I had a parent that was in Florida, right, I might use a care manager maybe 5 to 10 hours a month, right? And that's just for ongoing coordination, right? So at an average of, let's say, $175 an hour, that's anywhere from 900 to maybe like $2,000 a month. All right. Now that sounds like a lot, but let's compare it to the actual alternatives. Okay. Now, a family caregiver that is taking care of a parent, you're going to have to take a week off of work every time there's a hospital event. If you have kids, you're not going to be able to focus on just raising your kids primarily and being present there. You might have to be managing dad's care from 1,000 miles away, right? A sibling relationship might be strained because someone made a decision that the other didn't agree with because they saw a TikTok and they think you should do it this way, et cetera, et cetera. Like, listen, like when you factor all of these things in, a care manager, an aging life care manager, is often the highest leverage hire that your family can make. Okay. And if you're sitting here and you're trying to figure out, where your family might actually fall on the on the care needs spectrum, now this is exactly why we built our free 2-minute care assessment. It walks you through key questions about your parents' situation and it gives you a starting point. So I want you to comment quiz and I will send it directly to you, or you can just grab the link in the description. It's right there. It'll help you figure out if a care manager is even the right call before you start, calling around, interviewing, and doing all that stuff. When do you definitely need a geriatric care manager? I think there's 3 scenarios where you definitely need one. And then I'm going to walk you through when you probably don't need one. Okay. The first scenario where you definitely need one is if you are long distance caregiver. This is obvious. Okay. If you live more than a few hours away from your parent, especially if you're in a different state because rules change by state, then a care manager is one of the most valuable hires that you can make. They pretty much become your ears, your eyes, your hands, everything on the ground, right? Boots on ground at all times. Okay. The second reason that you're definitely going to need one is if there is a complex medical or like a cognitive situation that's going on. So if your parent has had medical chronic conditions, if they have Alzheimer's, dementia, any form of it, if they've been frequently hospitalized or, they have rapidly changing care needs, then the coordination load for this can be enormous. A lot of time, you're going to want a professional to handle that because they're going to be better than a family caregiver who's also working a full-time job, right? Like just because I love my kids does not mean that I'm the best dentist for them. You know what I'm saying? Like just because I love my wife does not mean that I'm going to be her nail tech. I'm going to I'm going to outsource that role and that task to somebody who's qualified to do that. Does that make sense? Okay. The third reason that you're definitely probably going to need one is if there's family conflict. Okay. Now, when siblings can't agree on care decisions, like I mentioned before, the care manager, they become that neutral party, that neutral expert, and you can defer decisions to them. Okay. They make these recommendations based on a professional assessment, and hopefully they will ignore the family drama and family politics that kind of line a lot of these intense conversations. I think it de-escalates the conflict a lot faster, and it gets the focus back on your parents' needs, which is where it should be. All right. Now, when you definitely don't need a geriatric care manager, I think if your parent has stable, low complex needs, I don't think you need one. I think if you live nearby and you have time to coordinate all this stuff, I don't think you need one. I think if your family is aligned on decisions and you have direct relationships with the doctors, I don't think you need one. And then also, a lot of the time, uh, there are like premium concierge medical care insurances and services that also include, this concierge and coordination service. If you have one of those, then you don't need a care manager as well. I think in those cases, you're probably equipped to handle them by yourself or like with the help of a power of attorney or like a planning network or something like that, right? I think you're good there. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about, and this one is pretty critical in my opinion, because this field is non-regulated, okay? Which means that there is no federal license required to call yourself a geriatric care manager. This is really, really important because anybody with a Chat GPT subscription and a Wix website can go ahead and start doing this. So you really want to look for credentials because they matter in this scenario. So there's an association called the Aging Life Care Association, the ALCA. This is the professional body for this profession. So ALCA members, they have to hold a clinical credential. So typically like an RN or an LCSW or MSW or something similar, right? Something that shows that they have specific experience in aging care. So when you're evaluating a geriatric care manager, you want to ask if they're a member of the ALCA. And if they're not, you want to ask why, right? Now, beyond the ALCA membership, there are other things that you want to look for, but that's really the main one. Another thing that you could probably look for is their clinical background. So like I said before, a lot of these care managers, they tend to be either nurses or social workers or mixes of the two. In my experience, I've seen these nurses, they tend to be stronger on the medical coordination side. And the social workers, they tend to be stronger on the family dynamics and the resource navigation side. Both can be excellent depending on what your family needs the most at the time. You should be getting references. You should be talking to families that they've worked with. Verify the fee structure in writing. You should be doing chemistry checks. Like, think about it. This person is going to be involved in some of the most intimate and personal moments of your parents' life, hopefully for the rest of their life, right? Or so you need somebody that you can trust. You need somebody that your parent will trust. Okay. So just a quick recap: geriatric care managers or aging life care managers, either names at this point. They are the senior care professionals that most families have honestly never heard of, but I think they are invaluable in a lot of cases. They handle assessments, coordination, medical advocacy, family communication, and crisis response. They're between $100 and $250 an hour. I think that the math gets reasonable when you factor in what families would otherwise have to give up to handle these situations themselves. I think you definitely need one. if you're long distance, if your parent has complex medical or cognitive needs, or if there is family conflict around care decisions. You definitely need one. You probably don't need one if everything is stable, if you're close by and have the availability and bandwidth and time, and your family is all aligned on what needs to happen. Okay. You should look for an ALCA member. You should verify their clinical credentials. You should talk to their references and make sure that this is somebody that you trust and ultimately somebody that passes the vibe check. All right. Now, here's what I want you to do next. I want you to take our free 2-minute care assessment. It will literally help you figure out where your parent actually falls on the care needs spectrum, because it is a spectrum and things might start in some place and progress really fast, or it might take a little bit of time. But either way, I want you to make an informed decision. So I want you to have the data, right? You can do this honestly before you even hire a care manager, before you even start the conversations. All you have to do is comment quiz. I'll send it directly to you, or you can hit the link in the description. It'll take you straight there. Okay. I believe that a clear assessment is the foundation of every smart senior care decision. And I want you guys to have intentional and curated data to be able to make these decisions. Okay. I'm Winston One Day. I want you to plan early, plan smart, and most importantly, please take care of one another. I'll see you in the next one.